Maybe that way everything will work. If you want, I can pile drive my mic. Maybe an elbow drop from the top turnbuckle.
Hey, we're talking bass in the grass on this edition of Tackle Shop Live.
A sunny day, right there you took my breath away. A young and pretty, was it just a dream? The next day you called me up, you told me I'm your little buttercup. You came over and you fell into my arms.
That's right. We're talking bass in the grass. How's everybody doing tonight? Craig Mancini, how are you? Kevin Carpenter, Jeff Brubaker, what's up, man? How you doing? And the guy who was on here first tonight, Terry Flowers. Yeah.
From East Tennessee, baby.
Oh, Terry Flowers from East Tennessee. How are you doing, buddy?
Now you got it.
Now I got it. Kevin Carpenter, how you doing? Jeff Brubaker, Jeff Riddle, David Schottelmeyer, how are you? Michelle Renee. What is happening, everybody?
The birthday boy.
Keith Howard's here. Brian Setlock.
The birthday
Gio.
boy.
What up, man?
Happy birthday, Gio.
Jeff Riddle. Raymond Barton, how are you? David Richardson. What's up, Ben? Larry Lawrence. Man, we got a great show for you guys tonight. This is Tackle Shop Live. My name is Mike Acord. This is George Acord, and behind the camera is cameraman Nick.
How's it going, everybody?
As always, we are here, and we are here to talk fishing, and I'm so happy everybody's stopping in tonight. We got a great show for you tonight. We're going to talk bass in the grass, Nick. That's what we're doing.
What they say, where there's grass, there's what, George?
Bass.
There's
That's
bass. So we're going to break down grass fishing. It's very complex. There's a lot of information that we're going to go over tonight. We've been taking notes all day long, me and George. So we have a lot to talk about there. But first, I have an announcement. This Saturday is the Conowingo Bass Open Series kickoff for the season. I'm excited about this tournament. We have a bunch of guys coming. I was talking to people all week long about it. So
all over the country.
It's crazy. It's everybody's coming from everywhere. But it's this Saturday. Registration starts at 4:30, and you guys can register at the ramp. So I think they're taking, you fill out the application, everything right at the ramp. So it's pretty easy to do. It's $100 fee to get in. And we're paying out 1 in 5 boats. So that's always good to know. And we have an optional $10 lunker that you can get into for that tournament. 5:20 is on land meeting. That's for the captains to come up and get the specs on what's going on for the day. 5:28 is the national anthem. 5:30 is the blast off, and they're fishing till 2 o'clock. Listen, this is a great time. This is a great tournament. This is you're fishing. We got everybody, beginners. We got a little bit of everything. So make sure you guys, if you're just getting into tournament fishing, this is the tournament series for you. And it is something that you're definitely going to want to participate in. Me and George are kicking in $1,000 for the final championship payout. And the only thing you have to do is spend $100 in the shop between and the end of the season. And you will be entered into that for the payout, the final payout.
And that's easy to do.
That's we made it what, $100. So it's, anybody could do that. It wasn't something we were going to make as a big thing, but it's part of the deal. That's what you're going to do. So
Out with that.
Tommy Young, how you doing? Terry Clowers, Kevin Geezy, what's up, Kevin? Robert Donahue, how are you, Robert? Good to see you, pal. But as always, this is a fishing show, and we are going to talk fishing. And right now we're going to get into some tournament talk. And we're going to start that right now. Yeah, all day today we've been watching the Major League Fishing Big Five series on the live stream, and man, it was fun. It was at James River. Me and George are all jacked up. We're leaving like tomorrow to go down there.
Yeah, I mean,
we are fired up about that place, man.
They caught
a ton of fish.
I mean, everybody in the field caught boatloads of fish.
Oh yeah, I mean,
the James River is alive and well and healthy.
Caught some big fish
well,
too.
I mean, look at the.
What was lunker 7 something?
Oh yeah, 7.5.
Yeah, 7.5 pound lunker.
I mean, look at the Bassmaster Open series that was earlier this year. I mean, it was astounding the fish they caught.
Yeah,
you know, there was a little more of a spawning event. You know, the size of the fish. You see, the thing about the James River that's interesting that a lot of you may not know the backstory of, you know, way back when the James River suffered a big decline. It was one of the very first places that suffered from largemouth bass virus.
right.
And the bass fishermen took it upon themselves to start stocking the James River with not just restocking it, but also adding in F1 hybrids.
Yeah.
So back in the pre-internet days, you know, you would buy raffle tickets at boat shows to support, you know, Virginia Bass Federation, Maryland Bass Federation, particularly the Virginia Bass Federation because it was in their turf, but the other federations kicked in because they fished there, and they paid for the fish, and they took their boats and their manpower and they stocked, and then the Virginia Department of Wildlife, you know, started paying attention and they got involved, and now you've just got this just phenomenal tidal fishery that stretches from, you know, just below where the 95 bridge crosses the James in Richmond, south to below the Chickahominy.
Yeah.
Before you get into pure saltwater.
Yeah.
Then you got the whole Chickahominy River.
Yeah.
You got the Appomattox River. You've got countless creeks.
Yeah.
Backwaters. So it's just an amazing fishery. And now we have a post-spawn summer event. We have the MLF Big Five, Way 5 series.
They were weighing them too, boy.
They were weighing them. They were catching them. They were weighing them. They were doing everything you're supposed to do with them. They were fishing a lot of grass, which kind of fits into today's topic.
That was so cool watching them guys flipping that stuff. It was just great.
Yeah.
They were jacking on some giants in that lily pads and grass and
the spatter dock.
Spatter
They
dock.
were flipping the spatter dock, and I imagine there's. I haven't been on the James in a while. I imagine there's milfoil, and I imagine there's eelgrass. Like any other tidal body of water around here. And of course, you know, all the interesting hardcover that comes with old, you know, rivers that had man around them forever, you know, bulkheads and old ancient barge wrecks and marinas and duck blinds and on the main river they use wing walls to direct current flow to help, you know, keep that navigable channel open. So you got the little wing dams and you name it.
It's great fishery.
It's got it.
It's exciting.
You know, and
it's got me all fired up to go down there.
Giant fish in it because of these F1s. They're, you know,
that may be our trip, Nick.
7, 8, 9s.
I'm ready.
But what's interesting is, you know, you saw a ton of flipping. You saw a ton of like buzz baiting. One angler was doing extremely well on a big whopper plopper, popper, cranking, all on the grass, you know, all the different grasses. You saw, you know, just everything in play. And what's really interesting is gray buck
Yeah, our own
He
Great
was
Buck,
a great friend of the store. And,
Pennsylvania boy.
Yeah, just from north here a little bit.
Yeah.
Leading the pack at 21.03, which is, pretty stout on a.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, you go to the Potomac River right now and catch 21 pounds, and you're going to make the front page of the local, the Marbury Times. I can tell you that much.
You're right about that. That's a hell of accomplishment down there.
Well,
21 pounds. That's awesome.
I mean, it's awesome. He's not going to be able to sleep real well tonight because Dakota Ebear,
right on his tail.
Yeah, and he's every tournament, if you watch him on live, he's always just jacking them. And he's 20 pound, 15 ounce. So, Gray, he doesn't need a lot of sleep. He's young. Chris Grow, a former Bassmaster Elite Series qualifier, and I guess he fished the Elite Series for 2 or 3 years. He's one of the
Chris.
He's one of the, what do they call them? The chain rats from the Fox chain of lakes out in Chicago area.
Yeah.
And 20 pound, 7 ounce.
Oh, he's right there.
Third place.
Good for him.
So he's right there. Chad Warren, Tyler Wolcott, they're right in the 19.2, 19.3. And then 2 of our good friends, Cody Pike, who is the local stick, is got 12 pounds, 5 ounces in 80th place. Because everybody and their brother called a limit.
Yeah.
It's like every ounce is a spot. And Alex Davis.
Yeah.
Our good friend Alex Davis is in 84th place, was 12.3. And then we also checked out the guy we like to follow, John Cox. And he was down there in like 111th place. But here's the deal.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, it's Tidal Water. Tidal Water has a like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You whack them one day and it's a desert the next. So look for some massive leaderboard shakeups, because I'm pretty sure Cody Pike's not bringing in 12 pounds tomorrow. I'm pretty sure John Cox is not bringing in 11 pounds tomorrow. There's a lot of people that were in that 15, 16 range. They're going to be dangerous. So tune in. It's a great tournament to watch on the MLF. I'm going through the app to get to the website.
Yeah, we watched it all day on the big screen.
It was fantastic.
It was awesome.
And it kind of segues nicely.
Yeah.
What do you got, Nick? You're looking all poised up there.
Well, there's a name that I thought you'd mention. I don't know if he's fishing that tournament or not, but Spike Stoker. Is he fishing that one?
I don't know what's up with Spike. I think the last I heard, I think he took a sportscasting job for the local affiliate in Dallas, Texas. And now Game 4 highlights from the Stanley Cup Finals with Spike Stoker.
That's right.
What do you say, Chuck Rife? How you doing, buddy? Oliver, Gary, how you doing? Guess what? We did see that fish. Here it is, right here for you, bro. That is an 8-pound smallmouth bass.
8.58.
Yeah, 8.58 caught on Cayuga Lake
by Thomas Russell.
What
What
a giant.
Part of a 30-pound bag.
30 and smallies.
No. They weren't all small.
Ah, man, you ruined it.
Well, they might have been.
Yeah, how do you know? You got to say it.
Well,
Got an 8-pound smallmouth. What else are we fishing for?
I don't know.
30 and smallies. Can you imagine that?
Beast of a fish.
So there you go, Oliver. That's it. That's a beast, man. And I tell you, last year they had like a 29-something pound bag of smallmouth that wrecked everybody because they didn't catch smallmouth like that in that lake. But now look at this. Here's an 8-pounder.
They have a circuit up there. It's the Cayuga Finger Lakes Bass Open Circuit. And they get to fish all those dream waters, and they fish them at the optimal times of the year. And they stack up some fish. They got the local hammers fishing, and fantastic.
Yeah,
Fantastic,
absolutely. Mike
fantastic.
Barr, how you doing? Ed Rodnowski, Irod, what's up, man? Connor McLaughlin, and yeah, I mean that's the deal right there. Love those giant smallies. So there you have it. So that's pretty much a wrap up of that tournament. We're gonna watch it tomorrow. So
This was only day one.
This is day one. We got a couple more days of fishing that we're gonna watch, and good luck to Gray Buck down there. I hope he whacks him again and pulls through and gets a W.
Well, tomorrow they cut to the top 50.
Okay.
And so that's Friday. And
Yeah.
then Saturday, the top 50 fish. And then Sunday, they go to the top 10. Unfortunately, they zero out the weights on Sunday.
I don't like that.
You work your way through this whole process here, managing your fish, doing everything that tournament fishing is about. And then on Sunday, they're like, well, we're going to zero the weights. So, I mean, if you went ahead and built up a nice lead, it doesn't really matter. So there's two sides to that coin, obviously. But you got to get there before you have to worry about that problem.
Cool question from
saying?
Terry Clausers. What would that mean if that was a state record for an angler? And nowadays with sponsors, and companies that you caught the lure on. Well, yeah, what I wonder what that would mean.
Depends on the angler.
For a state. Probably not a whole lot.
Depends on the angler. I mean, first thing I'd do is I'd bring back the patch vest. But I would modify mine, and my patches would be on Velcro. So I'd have, I could go multiple levels. Like had the hummingbird
tear off
side imaging on. I had the Garmin Panoptics. I saw them on the. We were running the Ray Marine mapping system, and that way I could maximize my profit potential.
Prior profit potential.
Rods and reels and lines and baits on this side.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the state deal would be if it's a huge deal or
social media wise. I mean, he could run with it if you're into that.
Yeah.
But if you just kind of stay quiet about it, then nothing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the emphasis is on world record.
Yeah. Was that a state record at 85, George?
That's a state record.
Oh, state record.
But I really think it's up to the individual.
Yeah, how hungry he is.
How, what he can do about that. So it could be $0 to $1 million. But I would definitely look into the vest.
Right. The patch king.
Well, you got a lot more room that way.
Do you guys know if that fish was put back alive?
Of course.
I saw it getting weighed in the tub, and it was flipping and flopping. So in the picture, it's kind of
doesn't look good.
It has that distressed look, when the spines are down.
Yeah,
has that. But I'm sure it's not. There's actually right off camera in that picture. There's a conservation officer.
Yeah.
So I'm sure the fish was handled remarkably well.
Yeah.
They probably had a nice tank there.
Yeah.
But them big old fish, they look.
Yeah,
they look rough.
They look rough anyway. Yeah, they've been around the block a little bit, especially one up like in New York. It's probably like 150 years old.
Out there picking on the senior citizens.
Yeah. Wow, Well, all right.
Hell of a fish.
What do you think? You want to talk some grass?
Can you rephrase that?
What?
Well, we used to have a customer.
You want to talk some bass in the grass?
We had a customer who had he got into bass fishing really hardcore. Hardcore. He joined a local club. He went out and bought a brand new skeeter. He had a hell of a high paying job. And then he had a little falling out at work and quit. And the repo man came and got his boat, and things went south real quick. So he wanted to get himself on the right side of the finances, and he started a company called Grassmasters.
Oh,
landscaping. And he said he had to turn off his website, change the name of his company. He was ahead of his time on pharmaceutical distribution.
Yeah. All right, we'll talk bass in the grass right now. Well, the idea behind this conversation was, this is the time of year when the grass is really coming up and you're going to spend a lot of time in the grass. And you got grass in ponds, you got grass in lakes, you got grass in rivers, you got tidal water grass, you got all kinds of grass, and it's confusing. You get to some of these bodies of waters that have a lot of grass in it, and it's nothing to see a grass bed that's, hundreds of yards long, or
A mile.
or other grass beds that may be over a mile long.
Yeah.
And it's very confusing because you get in there and you start flipping grass, and it's almost like, well, how am I going to cover all this grass? What am I going to do? Well, that's what we're going to talk about tonight, is the types of grass, what makes grass different, what you're looking for in grass beds to kind of break them down quickly so that you're not fishing a lot of dead water, and it's hard to do. I'm not here saying I'm an expert at it, but I'm here to tell you that I've learned a lot of stuff over the years with the right people in the boat. And it helped me immensely take a big grass bed and narrow it down and fish the proper grass. But it's, in your smaller lakes, it's a lot easier to break it down. In your smaller bodies of water, like we have in here in Pennsylvania, it's kind of easy to break it down quickly. So we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about it. And I think we should talk about different types of grass first, George.
Yeah.
What kind of grass do we actually fish around?
Well, that has a lot to do with breaking down the grass bed. So, let's just talk about like a great big grass bed, a big flat on a body of water. Most of the country is, except for the Northeast, is in post-spawn.
Well, why grass? I mean, first of all, why would you fish grass over something else that's easier to fish, like rock piles or wood?
Well,
why is the grass so good?
First of all, grass beds are, the whole circle of life. So, during the day, they're providing shade, they're producing oxygen, they're filtering the water, they're providing homes for all the bait fish, the crawfish. Crawfish, love the grass. They crawl on the grass, they eat the grass, they're around the grass. There's just so much positive about grass that,
so it's a place for where the food source would hang out.
The whole food chain, the whole cycle, the largemouth, if it's a grass body of water, a lot of these fish will spend their majority of their life, focused on that grass. That's a spawning area. It's summer. It's a summer hangout, a feeding area. About the only time, and depending on where you live, this isn't even true. About the only time it doesn't play is in the winter. And that's only in our neck of the woods. You go, you get down to Florida, it's grass year round.
Yeah.
If you're a Lake Seminole guy in Georgia, you're fishing grass year round.
Right.
Even big
Gunnersville,
dead looking mats of, hyacinth is got, factors to it, like holding in temperature.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, there's so many variables and facets that make grass, the number one cover and / habitat.
Yeah.
If your body of water that you're fishing has it, you need to. I'm not saying you're not going to catch fish that are hardcover oriented, and I'm also not saying that if you're on a reservoir or a tidal water or a river that you're not going to catch fish that are current oriented. But if you got the grass option, you better get your pencil and your paper out tonight, because we're going to give you some nuggets to explore and capitalize and mine that grass for what it's worth. What do you think about that analogy, Nick?
I think it's a great analogy, and I like how you started with, why.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people ask that, like, you go to a new place for the first time, where should I start? And would you always recommend to start in the grass?
Yeah, I mean if it has grass, that's what you would look for,
On a new like let's say we were all going to a new body of water.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, for example, let's talk about the James. I mean, I haven't been on the James River in 20 something years. He's never been on the James River. You've never been on the James River. Brian over there has never been on. Brian has been on the James River.
He's been there.
So we can't bring Brian with us.
Bring
Sorry,
Brian
Brian. For our trip, we don't want anybody with any knowledge, so you're gonna have to stay home. But from pre-spawn through late fall, my number one priority on that river trip is going to be to explore the grass. And what we're going to talk about tonight is going to give us the tools to do that. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for us, there is different types of grass. When you go to these bodies of water, there's all the stuff that I fish, there's all kinds of different grass. So, I don't know how to start the conversation, but you got clump, good clump grass,
Well, I mean, I would start with, your clump grass, which is primarily going to be either be milfoil or coontail.
Yeah. You got milfoil and coontail, which is going to be your clump grass, which is the kind of the grass that everybody's looking for, because it offers a canopy, number one, but it also offers, some hollow area underneath it. And it's a stalk basically that grows up and then fans out at the surface, and you get that clump, you get that nice plume at the top that the fish it generates a lot of shade, generates a lot of current break. It's a more sturdier grass. There's a lot more places for fish to get in and hide behind. So
ambush points.
It gives a lot of ambush points. So your milfoil and your coontail are what everybody looks for.
That's your kind of clumpy
grass. Yeah. And then the other one that's out there that we see here where we're fishing is Hydrilla. And Hydrilla is one that is the one that hugs the bottom.
Well, yeah, I mean, it'll grow up. Hydrilla, if the growing season's long enough, Hydrilla will grow up in 6-8 foot of water.
Yeah,
but it's not a
canopy
per se. I mean, in the right climate, it'll mat out. But
yeah,
it's like a carpet. It's a thick. It's got a much smaller leaf on it.
Yeah,
it's more intertwined. It looks a lot like milfoil, but with a much smaller leaf, and it has more of a nature of like intertwining.
Right.
And it'll have a hollow spot underneath it. You get into these famous Hydrilla lakes, where you can be in, 12, 15 foot of water, and you can have 6 foot of water underneath that Hydrilla.
Yeah.
And, if you saw it from a drone, you would be like, what do I do?
Yeah.
You get on the famous Hydrilla flats of, Gunnersville, or you get down in some of those Texas lakes that are known for, just massive amounts of Hydrilla. And it's
the harder
overwhelming.
It's the harder grass to fish. It's definitely the harder grass to fish. But in the Northeast, we don't get like a ton of that. There is some, but there's not like a ton of it. And there's areas that has it, and that's thick, but it's kind of a grass that the fish don't really pull into as much.
What you'll see here is in the Northeast where we're from, you'll see, milfoil and coontail start early. That'll be kind of like the early grass growth that the fish will gravitate to for spawning. And then it'll grow up and you'll get that nice clump grass we were referring to. But as the water temperature creeps up, like's happening around here right now, and that water starts to clear, the Hydrilla will take over and choke out the milfoil.
Yeah.
And become the dominant. If you get the right favorable conditions, with a nice long hot summer growing period.
Yeah.
Now in South it's different, but here that's the way it is.
And the other grass that we have to kind of bring into this conversation now that we're talking about choking out and stuff is eelgrass. Or we were corrected by a good friend of ours many times, and he said if we ever called it eelgrass again, he's probably going to throw us out of the boat. But it's what's he say it is?
He calls it wild celery, but if you're in a tidal water body of water, it is eelgrass. But we have tremendous controversy here. We need someone like Gene Gillen to ring in.
Right.
Gene, if you're watching the show tonight,
but can
you help a brother out?
We do need help on that to clarify the whether it's eelgrass or celery. And
it could be our very good friend.
Yeah.
Whose last name rhymes with Beverly is full of shit too. We don't know.
Yeah. Right.
And what grass do you guys see on the river the most?
Yeah. So, on the Susquehanna River, we have, a plant style of, we call them grass beds, but they're a root-based plant stalk style type of grass. But then we also have
water willow.
But then we also have a lot of eelgrass on the river.
A lot of people call that water willow bank grass.
Yeah.
You go into like a lake, remember when Boyd Duckett won the Classic and he was punching that bank grass? That was water willow.
Yeah.
Because water willow is it never really dies off. It has that bamboo. The stalk is like bamboo. The roots build up the bottom.
Yeah.
And form like a nice sandy,
big root ball type of thing.
Loamy, sandy type, like underwater island.
Yeah, exactly.
It kind of grows it up over time. And, that's when Boyd won the Classic. He was punching, because that was in like February or March or something. He was punching that old growth water willow that didn't really die back that winter too bad.
Yeah.
We also have eelgrass, but on the lower river where we have the reservoirs, the series of dams and reservoirs, we have wonderful milfoil, coontail, and hydrilla. And if we get
and we have this other stuff that a lot of people don't like, and it's hard to fish, is that stringy. I call it string grass. It's
that's a good name.
I don't know what it is. Honest to God, I don't know what it is, but it's this real long, like stalky,
that's stringy what I call
thing.
It.
And then it has like
what they call it up north?
What?
Pickerel grass, pickerel weed.
Okay, so that's probably what it is.
But I prefer the scientific term string grass.
String grass. And and that'll hold fish, actually, believe it or not. It'll hold, George and I fished that type of grass already. But then there's that big wavy grass you get in that shallow water, that actually comes up and mats in the Juniata River. It's just like this total mat from one end to another. And I think, not 100% sure what that is, but it grows almost like milfoil. You know what I mean? It grows up on a stalk and then it plumes out and it just takes over. And it's very difficult to fish. And it just sits there in the current. It just kicks around like this. You ever see that stuff, George?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
So I don't know.
It's almost like a vine.
Yeah, but it's like it kind of is like a vine. It doesn't have the coontail looking stuff on it, like a milfoil does.
It actually has leaves.
Yeah, but
that are bigger.
I don't know.
A little bigger.
It kind of comes together like that. And out in Juniata, it's horrible. But the fish use it immensely, and it's hollow underneath it. So if you can get down through it in different pockets of it, and you can catch fish out of it. And the fish live in it immensely in that super shallow water. They'll get right underneath it. It's just really super hard to fish. So we fish stuff that's a little easier to fish. So we fish the grass beds that we call a water willow, and we fish the milfoil, and we fish the eelgrass on the Susquehanna.
Well, that's what we look for, but sometimes you end up having to fish other grasses because guess what? That's where the bait is.
Yeah.
So, you can have the best of grass, but without the bait, you're going to have the best of grass without the bass.
Yeah.
And the bait, of course, can move in and out. Now, the other kind of grass that you don't have written on your little cheat sheet there, which is famous in the Northeast. Matter of fact, it's a very invasive species that's actually working its way south. It's actually on the Chesapeake Bay now. And the only way to get rid of it is manually pull it out of the bottom of the water with your hands. And it's called water chestnut.
Yeah.
And it is a vine with a leaf at the top of it. And, you know, it's really adaptive to like tidal waters. It started kind of epicenter, you know, Hudson River,
Yeah.
Lake Champlain on the south end has a lot of it.
There you go, Chuck. That's what it is.
It's starting to come into the Chesapeake Bay. They're doing like manual, like forming work parties and pulling it. It has a really nasty, spiny seed pod that sinks to the bottom. Do not wade in water chestnut beds. For example, if you got your boat stuck there and it was really stuck bad and you had to get out of the boat, make sure your shoes are on, or you might be bleeding for days out of your feet.
And then an infection comes in and you have to amputate your feet. And
It may happen.
it may happen. Might have happened to somebody.
But
Very viney and choke out a freaking 150 instantly, man.
awesome habitat.
Choke it out.
It has shade. It has, you know, the oxygen quality, the filtering quality. It has all the qualities of grass.
Yeah.
And it attracts, you know, the bait. It attracts the bass, and it's a great grass to explore.
So somebody was talking about the Susquehanna Flats on here, asking about, you know, how to fish it and what it's all about. You know,
I think this conversation is going to answer that.
Yeah, it is going to answer it. And that's what I wanted to say. As we talk through this, you're going to be able to apply these techniques to that type of water down there, because that's a very, very, you know, it's
vast.
It's vast. So you're going to be messing with big grass. So I think what we should start with first is, you know, big grass areas, breaking it down and what it's all about. So, I can tell you that, you know, when you're grass fishing and you're running down a grass line, it's kind of obvious to a lot of people, but some people just don't know. As you're looking for, you know, the change in the grass, you know, you're looking for a natural point, a natural swing, a natural indentation that would give a fish an ambush point. And that's really what you're doing. These fish are using the grass as an ambush. So, you know, when you're just fishing the grass, your key points are, you know, the change in the grass line, something that sticks out a little further that makes a point, something that pops back into grass that makes a little cut in the grass, or a little channel where, you know, boats are going in and out. I know I fish those a lot, you know. You know, if there's a dock back,
especially as the season progresses and
Yeah.
that grass
Yeah.
grows,
And-
those boat lanes become big.
yeah. So guy has a dock in there and he lives there, you know, he's there for every weekend. He's got a thing cut in there. Yes, Nick.
So you're talking about these big grass beds, and
Yeah.
as George and you guys, you talked about, like, let's say Gunnersville, they could be what,
miles.
Yeah.
So
Potomac River.
River.
Miles.
are you just putting your trolling motor down, or are you going to do some side imaging?
Idling.
You're going to do some side imaging.
Yeah. So the way I like to break them down is kind of what Mike's talking about, but at first,
Well, that's how you fish the grass, but you know,
but I mean, it's kind of, we're looking for what you're talking about.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
But we're not doing it on the trolling motor. We're not going to troll for, 3 miles looking for, because there's other things in that grass under the water that make, choice spots. For example, the hardness of the bottom. So when you can find things like, for example, on our tidal waters and on, you hear them talk about it all the time on TVA lakes, when you can find shell beds, shell bars in that grass bed. So, that first.
We talk about that a lot around here.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. We do, especially on our tidal waters.
Yeah.
That first approach to a big grass bed, is we're going to idle this with side imaging. And we're looking for, those hard returns in that grass. But you're also looking for different densities of grass. You're looking for, what your eye can't see. Now, on a tidal body of water, I got a nice little tip for you. And it kind of sucks because the best time to do it is the best time to fish. Idle your massive grass flats at low tide because they're way more exposed. The problem is everybody wants to fish at low tide. right?
Later on, Brian.
Brian's out. So
Little camera shy.
So George, at that low tide, you can visually see things.
yeah, so you can actually idle the grass lines. Now, keep in mind, you're putting down your trail on your GPS. Okay. You can also be watching your side image and pick out your hard spots and drop waypoints on them. Okay. So,
yeah, or ditches.
Exactly.
A ditch,
depression.
some place where it gets to maybe a foot deeper. But George, especially the rock veins. I like looking for rock veins. You'll look for those little
pieces of wood.
Yeah, anything like that. You know,
and your waypoints can get a little confusing. So you can do some different things that work for you. Like for Mike and I, we use a stop sign for rock.
Yep.
We used a tree symbol for trees.
Yep.
And then in the really, really choice, hard spot grass areas, we use a knife and fork symbol because that's where they eat. You know what I mean? So
that's right,
now,
baby. I love them. We don't have a lot of them spots, but when we do, baby.
Yeah, you've given up, your prime low tide, or you've given up some of your precious Saturday off of work, to idle, but it's going to pay big dividends.
You can go back year after year after year, and
right.
and
even that day, you're not. I mean, you put that trolling motor down and you attack.
Yeah.
Like the Vikings, that grass bed, and then you realize like 5 hours later,
yeah,
you didn't get too far,
right?
Because everything just looks so
great.
Good.
Yeah, everything looks great, and so the other thing is you're looking for bait. You're looking for that all that bait stuff, and then when you do get to those, when you do get to go fishing, you're listening for like, and this was cool. This is something I learned. You're listening for the bluegills sucking off the bugs off of the bottom of the grass. They'll be in there and you'll hear them. You'll hear them like little sips. The sipping. That's telling you there's bluegills in the area, which is a prime forage base. For those bass to get on. So. When you're fishing anytime, you got to have a total open mind. And that's one of the things about like these electronics nowadays is you're looking down all the time. But in this situation, you need to have your head up, you need to have your ears open, and you need to be visibly fishing and visually looking.
Well, yeah,
for a lot of different things.
And the other thing you'll see a lot, especially if you're really paying attention to Mike's point, you'll see crawfish walking on the grass.
Yeah, I want to get into that a little bit. I think it's a later it's a
summer thing.
It's a summer thing. As the summer progresses, your grass beds become more mature. So it's different fishing grass in the spring because you can fish over top, and it's a lot easier to cover a lot of it because you can chuck a rattle trap or you can chuck a chatterbait, some of these easy baits to fish over top of a crankbait, like we talked, because your grass is just emergent, and then late spring, you start seeing some clumps, but you still can fish through it pretty easily. You can fish a lot of spinner baits and chatterbaits and cover a lot of water pretty quickly with it. But as this grass matures in July-ish, halfway through July and into August, and then into September, you're talking about a mature grass bed, and a lot of stuff starts happening. And that's when the crayfish start getting into the grass, because now it's a mature matted grass.
Well, that's when you'll see them walking on top of the grass.
Yeah, but they're really starting to use it now. It's getting up there where they can come up there and hide, and they're not exposed to just hanging onto a thing. They're more hiding in the grass, so they just start migrating to it big time. And that's late July, August, September.
In this part of the world.
Yeah, I have to talk about this part of the world, and then everybody can kind of put that into scenario for everywhere else in the world,
right.
To where you guys are listening, Tennessee, and some of the other people that are listening here from the southern states.
Yeah, you guys did a really good job of breaking down the different kind of grasses and things like this. But for everybody listening here, do you guys have a preference on your favorite kind of grass? Like, you go to a lake that has some different grasses. Is there a favorite, or is there something that you don't like?
Well, I mean, we want to fish grass that has fish in it. So, I mean, it's
my favorite's milfoil.
So yeah, for me, it's milfoil. Milfoil is the best grass to fish.
Or coontail.
Yeah, or coontail with that clumpy grass, and that's the best. It has the best of both worlds for everything. Number one, it's easy to fish. You can fish it a lot easier. It's easier to flip pockets and stalks and that kind of stuff a lot better. But I like fishing eelgrass too. I do well in eelgrass.
Yeah, I like eelgrass as well.
When they go in it, when they get in it, because you can fish moving. You can fish a chatterbait through it real nice, a spinnerbait through it real good, a swim jig. You don't have to punch and do all that kind of stuff that you have to do later in the season. But we enjoy flipping as much as anybody. Love it. Pitching that type of grass.
Well, and it's kind of interesting, because if you have both, or if you have eelgrass, say milfoil and or coontail and hydrilla, as that season progresses, you're gonna start fishing milfoil, you're gonna transition to eelgrass, and then you're gonna end up fishing hydrilla.
Yeah,
because hydrilla wins.
Yeah,
it's the one that chokes them all out. Eelgrass is an extremely fast-growing grass. Like, you will see a little spot of eelgrass in the spring on the bottom in clear water, and it looks fluorescent green. It's so easy to see. It's like, wow, there's some eelgrass. It might be a spot like this, and it's just kind of fluttering in the current, might only be this big. And you get optimal clear water and warm conditions, and you go back a week later, and
it's amazing how
think
fast
you're in a different place, and the eelgrass becomes a player because of that.
Yeah.
Because any grass that forms it's like weeds growing in your flower beds. You got your beautiful mowed yard, and then you got this flower bed that looks like mine. There's just an uncontrollable brush fire waiting to happen. And, that's that strip of milfoil.
Yeah.
That's the last of the Mohicans with the eelgrass coming in.
Well, the nice thing about eelgrass is the fish will come in the eelgrass and they'll just lay down inside of it. It's one of the things that they do. The other thing that they do is, eelgrass grows up on the edges, and the edges roll over like this. So it makes this bowl, this like mushroom type of effect, that you have these bass that they curl in underneath that stuff, and they just shoot out. I mean, you throw a chatterbait past that, and you might catch the edge of that grass, and you're ripping. They just shoot out from it and grab your bait. And that's what I learned. I learned there's fish that are in the top of it, but there's other fish that tuck in underneath, and maybe it gets sunny, and you can actually flip those outside edges of that a lot better and look for those little, because that stuff, as it grows, it doesn't just stick straight up in the air. It grows and starts rolling over, and then that's when you get those nice mushroom pockets underneath it.
Especially when you have that tidal change too.
Well, in tidal water, then you're fishing one side or the other for that canopy. You know what I'm saying? And the canopy always wins. I mean, anytime there's a canopy, that's always going to win. It's the best cover for those fish.
And kind of to my point, another one of the multiple features I like about milfoil is up in our part of the world, milfoil is one of the first grasses to grow. As a matter of fact, in a protected bay or a protected area, it won't even die over the winter.
Yeah.
When you roll into an area in the spring and the clump grass is like huge.
Yeah.
And everywhere else it's like this.
Yeah.
That held over. But my point is that I want to make is in the springtime, in the spawn time, you'll get before that milfoil gets real thick and spreads out, or coontail, you'll get veins or bands of it and a lot of barren ground around it. And that, even though you can't see it with your eye, that's a great area to fish for fish that are either preparing to spawn or are spawning.
Yeah, right.
They love that. So for me, milfoil plays a special place from pre-spawn through, the early summer, through Father's Day, right?
Sure.
Or even into July.
So, George, here's the situation, like we're in right now. You actually have this happening right now. This stuff's starting to choke out and it's starting to happen. But that gives you opportunity because now you have multiple grasses. You have a mixture of grasses. I know how to answer this, but how do you feel about that? The mixtures.
Well, I like it. If I can, after that graphing session on those big flats, if I'm lucky enough to identify a couple of hard spots and then that intersects with a couple different grass growths.
Yeah.
Their fish are there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to check that. They're there.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I think too.
Well, another combo I like, Mike, in your little combo game here.
Yeah.
Pads and milfoil.
Sure.
Early.
That's kind of where I was going with all this.
Before the milfoil chokes out the pads.
Right.
Because now you got kind of like outside of the pads, you got early growth milfoil that's not quite up to the surface yet. You can see it a little bit, but not a lot.
Right.
And then as you get into that pad edge, especially pre-spawn and spawn, when the pad leaves aren't up yet, the stems. There's another one you don't have to fish because all the fish that want to go in there are going to spawn on them pad stems.
Yeah.
That's one area where a soft bottom doesn't matter because they're actually going to spawn on the root clumps of the pads. And if you saw what that is, it's like a big piece of looks like wood or something down there. It's a rhizome and they spawn on that.
Right.
So it's a hard spot.
So you guys get to these big grass flats or whatever you're looking at. You've identified these areas.
Yeah.
Now, how are you attacking these areas?
Well, it depends on the time of the year, but if it's like right now where you have grass that's starting to mature, but it's not quite there yet, we're going to go in there and we're going to try to get some baits to come through it. But we're, this time of year, I'm fishing some top waters. If I can get it, in these little cutouts, like I'm saying, and you find these little edges and these cool little points and stuff. I'm throwing a popper a lot right now. I'm throwing a Don Iovino Splash It. I'm throwing any kind of popper, that smaller size popper, and I'm working those edges, and it's just amazing how good those things are. All those types of maybe a wake bait, like a baby 1-, any of these nice wake baits that are coming out now on the market. These are perfect times to throw these things and work the edge of these little pockets. Absolutely, right there.
This is my new favorite, and it's interesting the way what Mike's talking about here. I call it the search portion of the grass fishing.
Yeah.
First, we have to search.
Yeah.
We think we know where they are, but we're not sure yet.
Exactly.
So we want to move.
Yep.
We're just looking for a bite or two.
Yep.
Don't worry, Mr. Bass.
And this is where
we might drive past you on this first pass.
But this is where
we'll be back.
This is where you're using your senses, your eyes, your ears, your everything.
And a good wake bait is priceless right now. And this is the new Macbeth Shallow 50 from Shimano. And last year, if you recall, I was just drooling all over myself about the KVD 2.5 wake bait, and I still am.
Yeah.
It's a fine product.
Yeah.
But now I got one that starts waking immediately.
Yeah.
I can hold my rod level to the water or up just a little bit, and I get like 3 cranks out of my reel, and I'm waking. And this is a wake bait.
Yeah, so that's
a rat.
Yeah, that's the search. That's exactly right. So there's a couple of things that me and George look at, and we broke it down into search.
Yeah. So the search techniques.
Yep.
The popper.
Exactly.
The wake bait.
Yeah.
Obviously.
The frog.
Yeah, and obviously we love to throw the chatterwagon.
Yeah, chatterwagon.
And the chatterwagon some more.
Yeah.
And then we usually will finish up by throwing the chatterwagon some more.
Yeah, we do throw it a lot because it's such a great search bait.
So I used to crank all my grass with a 1.5 KVD and a Bandit 100. A lot of you listening do not crank grass because treble hook snag grass. That's a big mistake, people. Treble hook snagging grass is good because then that gives you the opportunity to pop that bait free, which is a trigger. Plus, we're searching. We want to cover water. We want to keep the trolling motor pretty much rolling.
Yeah.
We're burning battery. But, so in my world, the Kevin Van Dam 1.5, the Bandit 100. I know Mike's a big Bandit 100 guy for cranking grass. And actually, one of our first trips this year, Mike whooped my ass at high tide on a KVD 1.5 cranking grass.
Yeah, I told you to tie it on. You didn't, so I put it on.
But lately, for the last year or so, we've been buying into the hybrid hunter hype. And, we're still learning. We're still cranking it a lot. It's working. As a matter of fact, last weekend, the hybrid hunter played a major role in producing some fish for us, cranking grass.
Yeah.
So cranking, and also depending on the thickness of the grass, of course, we are Aruku shad nuts,
Yeah.
We talk about this Aruku shad a lot. And just like you, we pay for all of our baits. So we're not, we're talking about what we like.
So, we're starting to get to the point where some of the stuff's getting more difficult to do, but you still can.
Yeah.
And
eventually we're going to lose the ability to do some of the lipless cranking.
So now we're fishing around there, and now we might have got a bite or two. Now we're going to go back.
Waypoint.
We're going to go back into that stuff, and now we're going to start to pitch and flip those clumps that where we had some bites, and we're going to pick apart that area.
We're going to pick apart the areas we identified.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. So we're going to pick those areas apart. We're going to pitch sweet beavers. We're gonna pitch and toss around Senkos.
We're gonna go creature style bait like a sweet beaver, which is one of our all-time favorites.
Yep.
And we're gonna. I just picked up this Baobab because I've been playing with the G crack here lately. It's been them Fritos is working for me, but there's an interesting thing that goes along with what Mike's talking about here. When you're pitching grass, it can be clumps. It can be a little thicker than clumps, whatever. I don't care. If you're not 110% sure that you're thumping the bottom with your bait, you're going to really hurt your opportunities to catch fish. If you think you're getting to the bottom,
add more weight.
Yeah. When that bait goes through the grass and hits the bottom, you're going to feel a thunk.
Yeah. The line's going to
and you're going to be able to say, oh, that bottom's soft or that bottom's hard.
Yeah.
You are not, and if you're not using enough weight,
more
often than not, you can fish over top of all the fish that you found in the search mode.
Exactly.
Trust me, I don't care. The weight is more important than the bait.
And don't worry if it's too heavy, because that fast fall, once it punches through that little whatever it is, and I'm not talking full blown punching, because I'm going to get in here in just a minute.
Later.
This, when it goes through whatever it was on, you want that thing to go fast, because that's another trigger. It's another fast trigger that you really want to happen. But more importantly, like George said, most of the time, when this grass isn't quite mature yet, but it's just about mature.
I literally, virtually, hardly ever flip or pitch grass clumps with less than 3/8 of an ounce.
Yeah.
Maybe really, really early when the grass is real
open and
sparse
and
can
everything.
do a 1/4 ounce.
Yeah.
But trust me.
And it doesn't take long to go to half, and it doesn't take long to go into 3/4.
Absolutely.
You can get right to there very quickly on that grass. And some of this stuff that we're in right now, that's where we're at. We're in 3/4.
Well,
and we're in 1/2 ounce and some
really,
of that stuff.
Along that vein, one of my favorite things to do when I get into a full-blown pick-apart pitching mode is to have 2 rods at least rigged, one with a 3/8 and one with maybe a 1/2 or a 3/4, depending on the thickness of the grass that I'm encountering.
Looky here, George. Ben Kirk.
Captain Kirk
finally made a live stream live. Well, Ben, how are you doing? I'm glad you made it, bro.
That's a thumbs up for you there, Ben.
Yep, thumbs up for you, buddy. Glad that you
Been a
made
minute.
alive. Yeah, it's been a while,
Yeah.
but at least he's been watching the replays.
Yeah.
That's okay too,
Yeah.
Ben.
Yeah.
Glad to have you live, brother.
Yeah. Welcome.
So,
Mike, that weight thing is big.
yeah.
And taking the time to rig up
And we talked about this before,
the couple options.
Yeah, we talked about, the snelling of the hook and the stuff it starts getting more important.
Yeah. All that goes.
Comes. We're not going to really get into that.
Yeah.
Because we could be on that for an hour.
We're not bogging down.
So
with that.
now,
But the weight.
Yeah, the weight is very serious. So now you go in there, you're picking apart that area, and you searched it with your search baits. You frogged over top of it. You you did your poppers. You did the cranking on the outside. Yeah. You did all that. Now you're back in there flipping, pitching, and you're dredging, and you're doing all this stuff to really pick it apart and see what's going on. And then that's when you start putting your pattern together. The type of spots that do work.
You're going to find out that profile of bait is everything. For example, when you get around bass that are eating little baby bluegills, a bait like a sweet beaver, is such a great profile for that. Pick your favorite brand, whatever.
Yeah.
Just get that. Put a little chartreuse tail dip or a little orange tail dip on there to give it that bluegill look. Chartreuse generally is better. If the water's kind of clean, which the grass usually makes it kind of clean, one thing I've noticed when they're eating a little bluegill is I like some red and some gold flake in my bait. Okay?
Yeah.
And a little bit of chartreuse tail dip. But that profile on the little bluegills, like Mike said, you'll hear them popping and sucking on the grass. Yeah. And you may even see a couple of them. And a lot of them are only this big.
They're just tiny little things. Perfect little morsels.
Now, if if there's some bigger bait, some bigger craws, some bigger baits, and you're not in really thick grass, do not overlook the classic Zoom Brush Hog. Again, it's not a punching bait, but a bait that you can get through good quality clump grass, eelgrass, early season hydrilla, but a bigger crawfish, bigger bait fish. This profile is straight money.
Yeah. Works real well.
It works real well. Comes in, different sizes, a baby, a mid, and a full size.
Yeah. The other thing happens in June is those little baby catfish get up in that grass, man. Those little mud cats, and they're brown and orange, man. They got little orange bellies to them, and those bass love them things. You'll be fishing along, and all of a sudden this whole freaking plume of grass will just explode. And that's those bass going in there and picking these little catfish, these little bitty catfish are like that. They just go in there and blow up on them and just smash them. And you'll start to see that here in June. It's usually Father's Day is when it normally starts happening. You start seeing that, that's why the frog becomes really good in around Father's Day, is because those fish are feeding on those, whatever's getting in the tops of them, those plumes, those milfoil tops, is the little catfish and the little bluegills, and they're all getting up in there. And that's why the frog starts to work, because they finally start looking up. They stop looking down and they start feeding up. And that's like so much a great time.
Well, so and depending on your
June and July,
water,
July for us around, and that's what I'm talking about.
We obviously fish a lot of tidal water, and mid-June, you're going to start seeing the baby white perch.
Yeah.
And they're up in there on the grass, and so those bass, like to Mike's point, are looking up. That's when some moving baits will start to really play a part.
Yeah.
Way more than just search baits. That's when the frog comes into play.
Yeah.
That's when the
toads,
the toads, there's a good, when they get on that kind of stuff, the toad bite can be money. This is the Z-Man goat toad.
Awesome bait.
You just buzz it across the top. Spinner bait. Now, the key with the spinner bait is to get it into that grass and pop it through and let it puff that mud off. That's a good So, you know, when you're in there pitching and flipping, keep in mind every now and again, if you start seeing a little activity, you know, pick up a moving bait and fan that area, because you might have some more aggressive fish that, yes, they will eat your flip bait,
Yeah.
but they may really smoke a moving bait. So don't get totally locked in, but you're probably, once you've done your search pattern, you're probably going to be a pitching and flipping fool.
Yeah.
And George, with that pitching and flipping, Mike has told me that you really like to dissect an area. How important for everybody listening is boat positioning, and how do you do that in there?
Well, it's critical, you know, and the thing about it is depending on the size of these grass areas, you know, I'm trying to pay attention to the location of my bites. Do I have to go all the way through the grass to the inside and then back out again? Are they everywhere, or are they more or less inside or outside? Or are they just on those hard spots? Or are they just on the edges of that ditch? Or is it all the above? So you really need, every bite tells so much volumes of information in grass, you know. I guess the biggest thing there, Nick, is just like cataloging everything that happens, you know. And I do like to pick it apart, but by the same token, you know, if the bites are spread out, I don't want to sit there and flip every single clump. Now, if I'm, you know, in a group of fish, I'll sit there and flip every single clump.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'll flip every little pad stem, but I'm also paying attention for movement. You know, I'm paying attention for those mud puffs that Mike's talking about. When I'm in pads like spatter dock, I'm paying attention to see if all of a sudden pad leaves start shaking, and this one shakes, then this one shakes, and this one shakes.
I can't tell you.
You know what I mean?
I can't tell you how many times we were fishing clump grass, and you look over and you see a bass like working one of those clumps, and you can see him flipping over and rolling over. You can't tell you how many times, and you flip over and you catch him on the first cast. I can't tell you how many times that happened to me.
Pay attention.
You got to pay attention when you're fishing, and that's what I'm saying. The electronics are awesome and they're great, but when you're grass fishing, your ears and your eyes are playing a huge role in what you're doing, because you're listening for the bait, you're listening and you're watching for the fish doing their thing. And I'm telling you, you can catch a lot of fish just visually going through a grass bed. But we want to keep moving here, because I got something to talk about here about your more mature grass. And it's something that will really help everybody out in fishing, mostly geared towards tidal water, but also geared towards you know, old grass. You know, grass grows up and it makes a mat, and some of the mats, and this is guys for Potomac River, and this is guys for the Chesapeake Bay, and this is guys for tidal water. You know, this is a little secret that I've learned and I was taught, and it took my heavy grass mat punching game to a totally different level. So now it's late July and August, and the grass is matted and it's been burning on it, you know, and the grass is fully matted. So now we're talking ounce and a half and 2 ounce weights, which happens about that time, at that time frame, that August time frame.
Yeah, I'd say most of the time an ounce and a half is going to get it done, but depending on the year,
yeah, some years it's a lot thicker.
You may get into something.
And now you're looking at a grass bed that you know, when you were there a little while ago, like a month ago, you know, you had it figured out where these spots were. And now you can go back to those spots, and you can now take those spots and you can narrow them down even more. And what I mean by that is, if you start looking at the grass bed, you'll start to see in tidal water, as the tide comes up, a lot of your grass unfolds and stands straight up, and the water is just right at the very tips of it. And then it comes back down, and at low tide, it actually mats. Well, there's areas within that area that you're fishing that the grass is always matted. It never unfolds. It grew out thicker. And all you got to do is start paying attention to that grass. You'll see it being a little different, more of a yellow color and not so bright green because the sun's been beating on it and it's been dying off. It has sticks in it. It's got bottles.
Might have a flip-flop in it.
A flip-flop. It's got bottles in
Dead
it.
catfish.
It's paper, because that is what they call a true mat. And all of a sudden, you're looking at this piece of grass and now it's this big. You take this and now you made it into this. And that 30-yard, 40-yard.
Did you just tell us another way to narrow down a big grass bed?
Absolutely. You can just go around and you can watch and look at this grass bed, especially in tidal water, and you'll see where the water doesn't unfold the grass and all that stuff falls away. And that's what they call the true mat. That is the mat where in August and September, all of your bait fish lives. The crayfish are living in there hardcore now. Now they're on top crawling around in this stuff. They're picking bugs off of it. They're feeding on dead fish. They're doing whatever.
They're eating the grass leaves.
They're up on top of it, and they're little bitty suckers like that, and they're bright freaking red. Unbelievable. And then underneath you hear, this is where you're hearing this sipping.
That's called the juice.
And that's the bluegills are sucking the bugs and the little things off the bottom of the mat that are getting crawled through. And the water never gets to the top of that. It always is a mat. It's a constant mat. And that's what they call a true mat.
Let me tell you
in
another
tidal
thing
water
about
fishing.
that. I've been on them already, on that sweet spot already, just stealthily flipping and fishing away. And all of a sudden, out of this mat pops a bluegill the size of a sweet beaver. Now he's laying on top of the mat, flapping like a fool. He come up out of there to get away from something.
Yeah.
And then when he got to go back down through, or he's going to die. He's going to die either way. But he takes the hero way out and dive bombs. That's when you pick up your sweet beaver on your 1.5 ounce weight that's got the red and the gold flake in it and the little chartreuse dip on the tail. And you just know when you flip that in there and it goes through that mat, you're just going to hear that braid go.
Yep.
As it gets pulled down through that grass.
Yep. It starts humming through there.
But another problem is getting to some of those spots.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes
they're back in there.
You got to get the push pole out.
But you're looking at a piece of grass bed that when you're looking out through there and you see that yellow stained grass, it might only be 4 foot in diameter. You know what I mean? I remember when I learned this technique, I remember the guy who won the tournament that year, he was flipping those little mats the size of what do you say, the size of paper plates. He'd find these little paper plate mats and he'd punch right through the middle of them, and he ended up winning the tournament. But getting getting to that mat that you see back there that has all that stuff on it, now you got to get back there to check it out. That's what George is talking about.
Well, and there's some other spin-offs of the mat game. So, for example, chopped up grass, be it from people fishing a big popular flat with their trolling motors or a heavy windstorm, but those chopped up, ripped up pieces, the wind will blow them and they'll gather on
it might catch on a tree, top of a tree or something.
Yeah, it might catch on a tree limb.
It might catch on a little corner of a bank or something.
A little boat dock, and maybe the corner of a seawall, and they'll build up. And now the next day, you've got these trash mats.
Yeah.
That are clear water all the ways around them, and you have outstanding opportunities for frogging and flipping.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it won't take the big 1.5 ounce weight usually to get through it. Usually you can get through with a 1/2 or a 3/4.
Something that's huge on lakes, Nick.
And a frog.
Huge on lakes.
And you can run and gun this on your trolling motor down that bank because you're going to be on the side that the wind blew. So your clues are, a wind event. And you're paying attention on where that wind would have pushed things. And you focus on exploiting that a little bit and seeing if that is a thing. And it usually is.
Can you visually see them?
Oh, yeah. They're floating.
Oh, yeah. They're floating mats.
They're floating mats of chopped up grass or torn loose grass.
It's on the bank.
Or
It's usually on the bank. It's
Yeah.
you know, it's
could be pushed into a pad field. It could be pushed into whatever.
it's on a bank.
It
You
just
know,
goes
the
like
tree
this.
limb might catch some of it up.
It just
and
piles in like this.
I love it. You know, I love it when you have a lay down in the water, and then all that stuff gets gathered on there over time, and it's just gathering in, and that stuff's not going anywhere for the summer. And
It's
it's just
a big deal.
you know, it might have blew, you know, a couple weeks ago and just piled that stuff in there.
It's part of the grass game.
Lake Oneida, I've done super well on it back in the super shallow water. The chopped up grass from everybody, you know, going through it out there. It just gets blown in these little cuts. I used to go back in there, man, I had to lift my trolling motor up shallow, and I'd see these mats, and so much fun. You just flip in those things, and the whole entire mat just starts bubbling up, man. It's just like, it's so much fun.
I've had similar events on so many lakes. It's
Raystown Lake. I've done it on Raystown Lake.
It's a big thing for me on Champlain Lake in the
Champlain,
past.
anywhere there's grass, where there's trolling
everywhere, or just big wind event. You
Yeah.
know, and if you know anything about like up north, the wind blows all the time, so that happens.
Yeah, these trolling motors, like we were, you know, you're down at Susquehanna Flats, and you know there's 8 million boats out there chopping this grass up. Well, that grass is going somewhere, and you start getting into some of these little pockets and some of these little bays where it kind of starts gathering up. You start looking for that stuff, and there's fish always living. It's just another ecosystem that was made, and it's something for you to try out, and it works so well. Punching through that is so much fun. Or like George said, throwing a frog over top of it is so much fun.
That's
really
a great out of the box.
really cool. Oh yeah.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, but I think the biggest deal that you need to really take from this is you can really narrow down these grass beds by just looking at the really good quality matted grass. This is in August and September. That really good old matted up grass that's you know that has the best ecosystem in it, has the most bait in it, has the most of this in it, and then go in there and fish it. And that stuff that's cleaned out and real clean, you know, some reason there's not going to be a lot of bait fish in it. So you just kind of stay away from that and say, okay, this is where it's really happening. This is the hotel.
So Mike,
you know, this is
in
the
that
hotel.
time period you're talking about, a lot of times I know down at the flats, you'll see that what they call Black Death.
Yeah.
Are you staying away from that?
Well, Black Death is different. That's, you know, that's an algae that it's an algae that's growing. And, you know, I think at the very beginning of it, you can catch fish out of it, but it decays and it changes the water. You can smell it. It turns into like a crazy chlorine smell, and it's from sewers, and it's sewer water, and it's not the best water for fish to hang out in. And some of it you know you have to catch fish out of because it's all over the place, so the fish aren't going to go that far, you know, but they're not going to hang out in the real thick stuff of that, you know. So that's a little different. That Black Death is horrible. It's algae that is you know, it's that stupid stuff that sticks on all your baits. Can't hardly fish it, and I don't think the fish like it at all.
I mean, they're around it early, to your point, but
Yeah.
when you get into the dog days of summer,
And it starts rotting and
you know.
going
And I
on
think before we cross over the threshold of to the dog days, because I want to talk about some specific things about the dog days of summer. I mean, you know, it's typically assumed that, you know, June and July are fantastic. August starts to get a little meh. September is like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, before we get into those phases, I want to back up a little bit and talk about the outside / finesse aspect of grass fishing.
Well, I think that's great. I think we should talk about
We'll jump into that.
That right now. I think is a great time because, so now because we talked about the shallow, visible type of grass, and now you're going to have the outside edge, and then you're going to have move, and we got to keep moving out to the deep edge.
Right. So you're going to have the outside, and you're also going to have in the early grass growth season, you're going to have a more sparse grass that, you know, sometimes you got to finesse them.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's, you know, everybody fishes a Senko, obviously. Wacky, in Texas, in weightless, and that goes without saying. I mean, you know, a Yamamoto Senko, you know, you name your variation. You know, I really like the bellow stick and the Yami stick from G-Crack and the Yamamoto Senko and whatever. But we all fish those. But some of the things that are being overlooked by a lot of people, I know I'm new to it, is Nico rigging this grass and drop shotting this grass because of a tough bite scenario. And, you know, those are techniques that can get you bit. And although you may not be fond of them, or that may not be the way you want to fish, that may be the way you end up fishing. And I can assure you, if you're new to it, you know, once you have that finesse rig in that grass, that sparser grass, and you're getting bit, you're going to become a big fan of it. And it's going to show a place on your front deck of your boat whenever you're grass fishing, because it flat out works. I mean, the Nico rig is not a far cry from a wacky rig. So if you're wacky rigging grass, you know, you're basically Nico rigging grass. Put a little nail weight in the head of that wacky rig, okay? That's just helping you get down in that grass a little more. But, man, what a powerful tool.
Yeah, so, you know, now you have some thick grass and you have that visual line of grass that's there. The grass doesn't stop growing.
Absolutely not.
The water depth starts to get deeper now, and I think this is where you get into that lake fishing type of scenario. It happens all over the place, but when you get into lake fishing, I'm sorry, and George, you know, like George said, that grass is growing, it's coming up, and you know you're looking for it. Sorry, you're looking for it on
Need some medicine?
I'm running. That's when I think I'm running out. But you know, for me, like I'm looking for points and that have grass on it, you know, and this is that summertime bite. You'll have thicker parts of the grass like up on the shallow parts of the point, but as you come out that point, that grass gets still growing, but there's more water over top of it, and then all of a sudden it gets out to the very end of it, and then you have the deep grass, the clumps.
Yeah, and the cleaner bottom.
And a cleaner bottom with a clump here and a clump there, you know, clump here and clump there.
And that's not necessarily deeper's not necessarily like really deep.
No.
Although it could be.
Yeah, but you know, my scenarios in some of the clearer lakes, you know, I'll have grass, you know, 17, 18 feet and have a nice line out there. And then I'll have clumps in that 20 feet of water, you know, 20 to 25 feet. You'll have those isolated clumps. So now you have all that. And then, you know, there's a bunch of techniques for that. In the mornings, I would pull up on those points of those grass on those grass and say I was never there, but I know there's grass on these points from what I read about. I would go find the grass and I'd throw top waters from here on out. A ton of top waters over top of that grass, try to get some blow ups. Now I got my graph on, looking for some bait. I've got my eyes going, looking for some bait flicking on the surface or whatever. And I got my graph going. I'm side scan, or I'm 360 in, and I'm looking for where these bass are related to. You know, now these electronics really come into play. So I might get a blow up or something like that first thing in the morning on top of that grass, and I might catch one or two. But then as I slow down, I want to stop, and this is where that drop shot comes into play for that outside edge, and out. As that grass is growing down and it's getting shorter and shorter because the sun's not meeting it, and you're down in that little bit of grass band, and you're throwing the Nico rig. Now you're looking at 12, 13, 14 foot of water. Nico drop shot. Carolina rig comes into play there, George.
Well, on the Nico and the drop shot, Mike, what's worked really well for me is a 15 braid to a 12-pound fluorocarbon leader.
Yeah. That's a great
the 12
combination.
I'm not comfortable with anything under a 12-pound fluorocarbon leader,
especially this is grass.
That's what we're
exactly.
So I'm fishing a 12-pound leader on my 15 braid. And my drop shot is going to be configured with a 6-inch straight worm. Take your pick of brands; they're all great. And I'm going to use a straight shank, like a robo worm rebarb or a Gamakatsu, Aaron Martin's finesse, G finesse straight shank. I'm going to Texas rig that worm.
Right.
I like a 2.0 hook. I don't know about you.
I do on a 6-inch.
I use the 2.0, and I'm going to Texas rig that worm. And again, I'm going to use a cylinder style drop shot. And again, I'm going to make sure that I can feel the bottom.
Yep.
So, in like the outside edge is 8-9 foot of water, a 1/4 ounce of work. If the outside edge is a little deeper than that, I may have to go a little heavier if the wind's blowing or whatever.
But you want to feel the grass when you're throwing that thing out there.
When it's a tough bite, that can be
deadly.
Insane.
Yeah.
I've experienced that. And I'm a stubborn son of a gun when it comes to picking up a spinning rod when I'm around grass.
Mm-hmm.
I see a comment on here from A1 from day one, Ben Buckhunter. If he can't use 65-pound braid, he's out.
Right.
I'm kind of like that, Ben. But you know what? There's been a couple times when I had my eyes opened up with that spinning rod. And you know what? Catching fish is a lot of fun. So play it.
Do you guys like to parallel those weed lines or cast into?
Depends on who's with me.
Right.
If I got George with me, we'll parallel and work, but if I got if I'm in a tournament or I got somebody that really doesn't know and doesn't want to come up front and doesn't, then I'll do more of a little angle, more of an angle thing. But if it's me and him and we kind of know where the fish are, we're putting that boat parallel and we want to keep our bait in that strike zone a lot longer. And that's even if they're up on top in the thick stuff, like Ben Buckhunter's saying here. And when we're flipping the heavy weights in that grass on those lake points that you still need an ounce to get through. You know what I'm saying? Because that lake grass gets as thick as any of them too.
Well, what works good for us, cameraman Nick, is we've adapted the electronic lifestyle just so we can be knowledgeable on this. So when Mike and I are fishing maybe one of the local series on the Conowingo or fishing a tournament on the Potomac or the Bay or something, and we're on that offshore grass, we've really gotten comfortable with Mega 360 and Panoptics and
working together.
Yeah, and so we're standing shoulder by shoulder, looking at our screens, panning around with the trolling motor, and picking out that edge or the clumps or a configuration of grass
on the 360
and something that Brandon Palaniuk showed on many of his videos. We'll actually kind of lay the fishing rod down on the screen and line it up and put those casts out there. And then we'll make sure that between the two of us, we put 2, 3, 4 casts in that area. Normally, if there's an active fish there, the very first cast gets bit.
You catch it.
And if you can't see the fish, a lot of times you cannot see those fish in the grass. You still want to throw a few more casts in there. And then somebody jumps on the trolling motor pedal and we move in or out a little bit, depending on whatever these screens are telling us. And then the same thing, here we go. Here's our next little indentation or whatever on the 360, and then kind of pan it a little bit with the Panoptics, and then same routine. So you're basically fishing the same exact way you'd be fishing that edge, only you're fishing this edge, but you can't see it, so you're looking here.
And you could do this with 2D because we did it with 2D for years.
Forever.
It's just, so guys.
What's nice about this is it's in front of you.
It's in front of you. And guys, if you don't have it, it's not the end of the world because you don't need, but if you do have it,
tell them the 2D technique.
Yeah. The 2D technique's the same thing. You're just going to go into it. You're going to come into your grass. You're going to find the clumps of grass and you're just going to
come back out again till it's clean.
Yeah, you come out till it's clean, and then all of a sudden you got your line,
and you see it,
and then you see your line, and you can just throw out in front of the boat and just Now you're
You may have to feel around a little bit.
you're gonna make multiple casts
Which is a good
for
thing.
feeling out in front of there, but that's fine. It's
It's
just
a good thing.
where the beauty of these electronics is just in this scenario how awesome it is to have that ability to have that 360 going around and saying, okay, well, there's a clumper that's heavier and thicker right over there, and then you take your pan over with your forward facing sonar and you isolate that exactly.
It'll flare up on your screen.
It'll flare up on your screen. You isolate it exactly, and then you just put the cast out there, and it's much more accurate. It's much more thorough, and you can go through there much more thoroughly. And then that 360 is just constantly telling you, oh, there's the edge. This is right on the edge here.
Don't underestimate the power of the Nico rig.
Yes,
and the drop shot
in that
scenario. Because,
exactly.
Okay, here's the thing you got to remember. I mean, where this conversation is got a lot of theoretical stuff going, but let's take a day of fishing. Okay, you're going to have a couple of more productive periods of time when you're going to choose other tools, but you're still fishing when it's not productive, and these are tools for those times.
Yeah.
Now, some days, I mean, we live in the Northeast, and I don't care where you live, all bodies of water seem to be crowded these days. Some days, the whole freaking day is not productive unless you're a finesse specialist. But I challenge you this. Look at these guys on tour. Look at this Taco Ito. Look at D-Style. Look at this new crop of guys, these Japanese finesse specialists that are on the Elite Series, just kicking ass and taking names with a spinning rod.
Yeah.
Doing things on heavily. That D-Style on that couple tournaments ago, and I forget where they were. I think it was in Tennessee on before Pickwick. But anyways, he was in this creek, and Davey Height said, yeah, this is like one of the most popular creeks off the lake.
So everybody's
Chickamauga.
So everybody's pounding.
And he said this, and when Davey Height went in there to look, D-Style was in there. There was 8 other boats in there. John Cruz was in there. They were all over the place. And he's out in the middle, and Davey Height said there's a little hump out there, and it's got a little bit of grass on it. He was doing what we're talking about. He had a freaking spinning rod, although he was doing some stuff that was
freakish
in the Matrix. I mean, he had little swim baits, and he was, I mean, it was almost like he was out on a freaking offshore boat, slow pitching for tuna, man. I mean, he had these things floating. But it's the same concept. Now, we also saw him in that same tournament pick up, a big swim bait and catch a fish. That's a more active period, right?
Yes.
And, another aspect of this outside edge game that's a little more aggressive that kind of goes along with this is, of course, the Carolina rig.
Yeah.
Which, we've talked about Carolina rigs until we're blue in the face. But what a fantastic way to fish that outside edge from actually what you see to what you don't see. Exactly what we just got done talking about. So that's kind of like that.
And George,
we kind of classified it outside and offshore.
That finesse game you're talking about, the Nico and the drop shot, the myth that they don't catch big fish. We've seen that was just a myth.
Oh,
it's a myth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
and they at one time they called them fairy ones. Don't forget.
So what I'd like to say,
they're not calling them that anymore.
What I'd like to say is I'd go back and rewatch, because the next tournament's smallmouth tournament on the Elite Series. But I would go back, for those of you who missed it, I would go back and I would rewatch the Chickamauga and Pickwick events. And I would pay very, very close attention to any time they covered Taco Ito, and his nickname is D-Style. He's a rookie. And Taco Ito, and this kind of cracked me up. He practiced before the lake went off limits for Pickwick for 30 straight days. From morning until night.
Graphing.
idled the entire lake. He had like 1,100 waypoints. And then the finesse fishing mastery that we saw goes really along with this.
Yeah.
You know, because this outside and offshore stuff, there's going to become a time, Ben the Buck Hunter, when you're going to need to put that 65 braid down, son.
So my brother-in-law, who's been fishing for many years, but just got a boat recently and is kind of learning fishing all over again. Once you get a boat, you got to learn fishing all over again because you never paid attention as a co-angler for all those years. And he was at a really grassy lake, and he said to me, he said, man, I'm at this lake. It's so grassy. And I said, well, what'd you see? And he said, well, I saw this one area, like this cove back in there, and I kept seeing big, splashes, like good quality splashes. And I said, was it carp? He said, no, it wasn't carp. It was definitely fish, bass, I said, well, did you go back in? And he said, I don't know. It's thick grass. I got trolling motor that's only, I think it was an 80-pound thrust trolling motor. I said, well, I think I'll chop through that stuff. Just go in there, and if, when it starts bogging down, you pick it up and shake it off, and then you start going again, and it gets thick and heavy again. You shake it off. You may have to put it in reverse or turn it around already, blow some of it off. And he went back in there and caught these fish on a frog. And he lost a lot of them because they were the grass was really super thick, but he caught some, he caught some fish. So, and I asked him, I said, what, because he has nice Garmin electronics and everything on there, but you didn't use it for this situation. This is a situation where that visual aspect comes. And there's times where you need to get back into this stuff and fish the inside edge grass line. Right, George?
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
Sometimes it's easy to get into the inside edge grass line, and sometimes it's not so easy to get in the inside of the grass line.
You and I did that in a tournament last summer, and it was not so easy to get to the inside.
No, but in the spring, we did the same thing.
Of cake.
And the early tournament, like the June tournament that we did, we went in and we actually caught a bunch of our keepers on the inside edge of that grass. And I saw activity in there.
Lots of activity.
And I said to George, we need to go in there. And he's like, oh God. And we had to flush and lift up and flush and reverse like 6 times to get back in there. Cause it was that
Hydrilla.
It was Hydrilla. It was horrible. Thick, took over the whole area.
But there was a clean band between the bank and the Hydrilla.
Yeah. A clean inside edge. So when we talk about inside edge, we're talking about there's some kind of band from the bank to where the grass starts. I fished a tournament down on Monongahela River, Nick. It was a divisional championship tournament, pretty important tournament. And I went down and practiced by myself the month prior to the tournament, just because I'd never been there. My brother and my dad were fishing a buddy tournament somewhere up north. So I took my jet boat down there and I fished the body of water. Didn't know anything about it, but I did hear there was grass on it. And I found this one area that there was this beautiful grass, and I was fishing the grass. I wasn't catching anything, but I kept noticing bait flicking back in there. So I took my jet boat, which was easy to do, and I went back to the inside edge of this grass, and it was 6, 8, 10 feet to the bank. Lots of wood piled in there.
Open water.
And then this beautiful edge of grass that went down through there. And I put this buzzbait on, man, and it was like, actually, it wasn't even a buzzbait. I shouldn't even tell this, but I was using a chigger crawl with a 3.0 offset hook, no weight. And I was throwing it and using it as a buzzbait.
Wrong.
Huh?
Wrong.
It wasn't a chigger crawl. It was a
Ultra Vibe
speed crawl. And I was tipped off. I'm not going to lie. Somebody tipped me off to this technique. But
I freaking knew it.
And I went and I fished the inside edge of this thing with this bait, and it was unbelievable. So I'm popping these fish down on the inside edge. I'm going down through there, and I'm catching. I caught like 15 bass, and I didn't, and everybody was saying how tough this place was, and I didn't think it was. I was like, oh shit, this ain't too bad. This is going to be great. And I get to the end, and there's these 2 guys on the outside edge of the grass that were working up through. And I get to the end to where kind of things got weird, and the mat kind of got up to the bank, so I cut out. I cut out into the thing, and these guys pulled up to me, and they're like, "What in hell are you doing, man?" He said, "We watched you come down through there. What were you throwing?" I said, "I was throwing a buzzbait." He said, "You weren't throwing no damn buzzbait." I'm like, we've been fishing here. We got these, blah, blah, blah. And I said, "You local?" And they said, "Yeah." So then I thought, okay, I'm going to talk to these guys a little bit. They're tournament guys. So we talked for a while, and I said, "Listen, this is what I was doing. I was on the ITS." They said, "We got a tournament next week." And I said, "Well, you can just go up through there." I said, "I had 2 fish that were 2.5 pounds or better." Now everybody's like, 2.5 pounds or better. Well, among a heel, that's like a 5-pounder.
I heard that already.
It's a very tough fishery.
I caught a 6-pounder once on the Mississippi River, and the guy in the boat told me there's no such thing as a 6-pounder on the Mississippi River.
Yeah. So so anyway, but that's my point. That was a whole pattern that those guys didn't get bit at all coming up through there, flipping the outside edge. And I wasn't either, but I went on the inside edge of the grass. So that's another type of grass fishing that you want to do, is to fish that inside edge.
Well, that's important.
And look for it.
And I'll tell you, the inside edge always plays, but I'll tell you one of the most important times of the year for the inside edge, and that's the spawn. Bass love to spawn on the inside edge of the grass. They particularly love to spawn on the inside edge of the grass in tidal water. And we've said this before on this show, but it is a true, absolute fact.
Yeah.
They love the inside edge. They love the inside edge when the grass is mature.
Yep.
There's a band in there. If you get a high water period, they love the inside edge. There's a lot of inside edge times that you need to, the worst thing you can do in grass fishing is get in a rut. The worst thing you can do in grass fishing is
do the same thing.
Run to the grass bed, get on the visual edge,
yeah,
and go down through there like a robot, because there's grass underneath your boat. There's grass behind you. There's an inside edge. There's the mat. And then, one of the things we want to touch on before we wrap up this grass conversation is the late season. What do you got, Nick?
I just wanted to say one of the things I'm really taking away too, and everybody should, from what you guys are talking about, is just using your senses. Like Mike, if you wouldn't have looked and see that happening inside that inside grass, it would never happen.
I always talk about that, but more so now than ever, I talk about it because these graphs, it's electronic stuff. It's killing people, taking away their natural ability.
Well, there needs to be a balance.
It's the truth, man. How about it?
You and I were fishing, and I forget when it was, not that long ago. We turned all the graphs off.
Yeah.
We were in super shallow. And we didn't need them, so we just turned them all off. We just put them all to sleep.
Just, you got to use, and I'm guilty as anybody. Trust me. I'm guilty as anybody, but
on the outside of them grass beds, when we're fishing open water on the outside,
I'm glad to have it.
Damn right.
You're damn glad to have it, but you got to be really careful that you don't allow your senses to go away, because a good fisherman doesn't rely on other senses. They use them and they do well, but the TV doesn't show the hours these guys have on the water, that they have these natural senses that they've learned over the years, and they honed them. And, you got to go with, your gut. You got to go with what you're seeing. You got to, I've caught so many fish on visual and hearing, using my ears and my eyes. I caught way more fish doing that than I did on electronics. The electronics put me in the right areas, but, my senses, your natural ability is how you catch fish. And you can't learn that just on grass. You got to be able to be, both ways. So,
we have a couple questions on here about explaining the inside edge of the grass. Now, for the most part, the inside edge of a grass bed, it would be where the grass ends between the shoreline and, let's just say between the shoreline and where the grass actually starts growing. For some reason, in a lot of areas, the grass does not grow.
Well, you have different drawdowns in the winter.
Right. And
low
for
water
whatever. I mean,
scenarios.
the
it just,
nature of that type of grass,
Yeah.
it needs a certain amount of
depth. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's for the most part. Now, if you're fishing like an offshore, like shoal type situation, a river bar, where grass is growing on a 6 foot deep bar that runs up the middle of the river, and it's deep channels all the way around it, you don't really have an inside edge there because you're in a big deep river, and then you got this bar, sandbar or gravel bar or a mixture of everything bar. We have some of them on the lower Susquehanna, and you're way out in the middle of the damn river on this shallow grass flat.
It grows edge
so
to edge.
You don't particularly have an inside edge there.
There isn't an edge.
That's what we mean by inside edge. And generally it means trolling motor jacked up as high as it'll go without cavitating, big motor trimmed up out of the water, and you're fishing in like a couple feet of water or less.
Super stealth mode and long casts and just depending on what you'll be doing. I mean, you'll do anything from frogging to buzz baiting to chatter baiting to Senko fishing to whatever. You just got to figure out what they're going to bite on. But
depends on the time of the year. It depends on.
We fish the inside edge for all times of the year, and you got to check it all times of the year.
It's really high on our rotation during the spawn. And then the rest of the year, we constantly fish the inside edge.
Just check it. You got to check the inside edge because when it's on, when those fish go shallow, especially if you had like a high water scenario where the lake's filled up with water or your river got high and those fish went to the bank, some of those fish will stay there. They'll stay on that inside edge because they found it. Now they're like, oh, this is cool. There's a lot of bait fish in here. It's easy food, and they'll stay in there. I remember on a local lake here a couple years ago, they drew it down 6 feet, then they filled it back up, and the grass grew real super thick mat. And there was one guy that I talked to that learned, he used a push pole, and I think George was going to get to this point at one time. To get to some of this stuff, this is when the push pole comes into play. You got to have a push pole because the trolling motor won't go through it. And it's a disaster to do it, but you can take a push pole and push pull yourself right in that inside edge. And he was fishing in 4 feet of water on the inside edge of that grass line and freaking pummeling him because he was the only guy doing it for about 2 days. And then people saw him in there.
Yeah, I mean,
and then they all went in there.
Again, pay attention to the small details.
Yeah.
Matthew Weimer chimes in. Thank God for good polarized glasses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. When and this is really key in grass, really key in spawn season, really key in any shallow water fishing. I mean, you are missing out on untold well-placed casts because you cannot see a rock, a stick, a grass clump, a grass edge. Shall I continue?
Yeah, right. Got to have it.
And actually, some days you need different tints. We fished on Sunday, and it was really overcast, super low ceiling, and a copper tint was spectacular for picking out that shallow water cover. And I put the damn grays on and could not see it. So I dug through the boat and found a pair of coppers and put them on, and it saved my bacon.
Yeah.
So
I think we covered it pretty good. I think
we did. I did want to talk about that late summer cheese fishing for like 2 minutes. And it's an expansion on Mike's trash mats. Only now you have that chartreuse algae growth on top of the grass. It's something you start seeing late summer. That transition.
It's different than that Black Death you're talking about, Nick.
No, it's chartreuse cheese. And
still horrible.
You can punch it and you can frog it. But the key to frogging it is getting your frog to sit down in it and making a good trail. And it's a great time of the year to size that frog up. To go to a 70 size Spro Popper or a 90 size King Daddy, or take your favorite frogs and put a bullet weight or two in them. You know, shove a 1/4 ounce lead bullet weight or a glass bead and a lead bullet weight in there, just so that frog sits down in that cheese and leaves those trails. And then punch that. So don't overlook that nasty acreage of chartreuse nastiness, because that is a major target during those dog days where your expectations are already low because it's a very terrible time to fish.
Yeah.
But, 5 bites is 5 bites, and they're going to be good ones. So
welcome, Fish Whisperer from Scotland. How you doing? Glad you stopped by, buddy.
they probably ain't got no cheese over there.
Probably don't have any bass over there.
Well, they might.
Scotland.
They might. They might.
Yeah, be interesting.
There's a stat on the fishing wire the other day. Bass have been stocked in like 39 countries other than the U.S. And they have massive bass fisheries.
Yeah.
In quite a few of those countries. I mean, Italy. Look at Jacopo Gabelli, who's fishing the MLF Big Five.
Yeah.
I mean, he's from Italy.
Yeah.
And they have bass fishing.
Oh yeah, they got huge bass fishing over there.
Our friends at Molex.
Yeah.
Paolo
mm-hmm.
and Stefano.
Mm-hmm.
They're big time bass fishermen over there, and all these other countries of people that we know.
I think Scotland's known for trout and salmon and pike, maybe,
and Scotch,
which we're a fan of.
Scotch.
Yep. Well, welcome, Fish Whisperer, and we appreciate it.
We do appreciate it. Mike, how about a little transitionary music, please?
Where are we going?
We're going to some.
Where are we going?
We're going to go to some.
We're going from Scotland to.
We're going to talk about a couple of baits, obviously, and some toys. But first, we're going to talk about Colombia, South America. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Colombia, South America has outlawed catch and release fishing.
Craziness.
Okay. Now, Germany has already had it outlawed. Some other country has it outlawed, but it's a non-factor there. But Colombia, and this is not 100%. The elected leaders did not do this. Basically the equivalent of their Supreme Court and their kind of tree hugging party is promoting this. But if it does prevail, which right now it has been banned, although I doubt if very many people are paying attention to it, it could transition into other northern reaches of South America, including Mexico, which would affect travel bass fishermen. So keep your eyes open on tree huggers from Colombia.
It has nothing to do with even catching and killing. You can't even.
No, if you fish, you have to kill.
What's their like backstory on it? Why?
Fish hooks cause pain.
Cruelty to animals.
So basically, we got a bunch of freaking PETA wielding freaking Spanish people down there lost their ever loving mind. I thought we'd bring that up.
Well, I mean, it's worrisome, I mean, I could almost see like, somebody's bringing that up here.
Well,
what the hell are they worried about the other day? They were worried about like the feelings of something, an elephant or something. I guess
Japan outlawed catch and release bass fishing.
Oh, human rights for elephants.
Nobody pays attention to it.
Wanted to have human rights for elephants.
So check this out. You probably read about it. I'm sure you heard about it because you guys got your freaking ears to the track. Like,
I know these guys know stuff way before most people do.
Not me.
No.
I know stuff before the manufacturers know they're even going to make it.
You might.
So
Before the manufacturer's going to make it?
before they even thought, before they had a meeting to propose it, I already know it's
You already
going to
know.
come out.
You already know it's coming.
That's how well connected I am.
Okay.
So Corey and Chris Johnston, who are the northern, hammers, they obviously work with Spro because they promote the hell out of Spro, which is a good thing to promote because Spro is bad to the bone. Spro's owned by Gamakatsu, so everything has a Gamakatsu hook on it. But anyways, I digress. Last year, they were winning Toyota Series. They were winning Bass Opens on the Thousand Islands. And they said they were using a bait that was being kept under wraps that Spro was bringing out. Well, here it is. The CJ Smasher. The CJ Smasher is made out of a material that Spro likes to call Duratough. It's actually the same material that Z-Man uses, TPE. Okay, which comes from the
TPE tree.
Yeah. Very safe for human consumption. And it's scented with what Spro likes to call amino bite. And Spro's been getting into the plastic realm, and a lot of it's saltwater oriented and a lot of it's panfish oriented and trout oriented, but some of it's bass oriented. But this one here has got our attention because it's a drop shot bait, but it's a little smaller than most. And you see those bags that those Johnston boys are carrying up to the scale.
They're hammering them.
And then you look at this drop shot bait, and it's literally, if you took like the top 5 drop shot baits in the shop, one of the smallest ones would be the half shell.
Yeah.
From KVD.
Right.
This is smaller than that. So
less
bulk. This is a big deal. Okay.
Yeah, we got them in. We got 3 colors in.
Yeah, they're just starting to hit the U.S. stores. We did get 3 in. For all you northbound Smalley slaying machines out there.
One size, Robert.
Get them while the getting's good because,
Yeah, it's going to be very limited.
Who knows?
We got very limited packages in, although
we're excited.
There's several hundred of them, but it's limited to 3 colors.
And the nice thing about this bait is with that material, you're going to put one of these on your hook,
fishing for a while.
You're going to fish all day. Okay, so when you look at the 5-count pack for $6.99, it's like, whoa. But let's face it, you're going to catch
Spro CJ Smasher
fish out of this pack or more. All right.
These are going to be all the colors. I don't know if
there's 17 colors. No, there's 12 colors, I think.
Yeah.
But that's new. That's starting to show up in the shop. We got 3 colors in. Now, another thing I want to share with you guys, and this is really cool. Before we sign off, I'm going to show you some cool swag. Stand by.
Cool swag. Meanwhile,
here we go, Mike. Get this up on the screen. All right, so AFCO, the Allegiance hood.
Oh, that's a cool shirt.
Put that up on the screen, would you?
It is up.
So,
what do you want me to do?
Hold this.
Bigger screen.
Hold up. Look at this bad boy. The white one has the red, white, and blue on the sleeve.
Hoodie.
Where it says AFCO. Yeah, it's a hood. But you got $39. You've got UPF 50 rating. You've got full size run all the ways up to XXX. Then the gray has the sleeve is like, it's just badass.
It's all faded.
So
it's all faded in there nice.
Whether you fish or not, the 4th of July is coming up. So you could look pretty dapper at your 4th of July barbecue. And then the last thing I wanted to throw out there to all you people out there in Tackle Shop Live land, Power Pro's been a bit of a problem to obtain. Please note, we are stocked up better than Power Pro is. And
Yeah.
Mike, I got one last thing for you, Mike.
I got a couple last things.
Okay. I want to talk about, for a minute, the Student Angler Federation, the High School Worlds at Pickwick. Just for a minute, 13th annual. You know, very good friend of the store, Bubba Cicero, got his ticket to Bethel University by winning this event.
Yeah.
Scholarship, fishing for a living. Well, guess what? 622 to 625 on Pickwick. We have the Worlds, which is a dual meet. The top 10% of the teams that finished in their qualifying events are also eligible to compete for their national title. We have teams from Canada. We have teams from Zimbabwe. We have teams from South Africa. $3 million in scholarships are being given out.
Yeah, unbelievable.
And if you don't think this is legit,
It's big.
talk to Bubba Cicero, who is
In Bethel
on a
University.
scholarship at Bethel, fishing on the freaking team,
Yeah.
and all these tournaments,
Yep.
living his best life.
Yep.
So my hat's off to all the student anglers.
These sizes run true, by the way.
And there you go.
I wear a double X. That's a double X. They work well for me. We also got a new run of the SFT hats, famous SFT hats that when I wear it, all the women come running. Yep. So that's why I switched hats, because my wife was getting mad at me. And we also still have some of the new flag hats in black and white still in stock. We're trying to get them on the website. It's like one of the hardest things in the world to put on the website. I don't know why, but it just is. Yeah. So congratulations to all the guys that are going to that tournament, George.
It's pretty big.
We got a great Maryland and PA contingency going down there, and we hope the best for those guys. And
yeah,
Don Roeder, how are you doing? Gary Schweitzer, how are you doing, man? I hope you need that hat. Call me. Got to call the shop for the hats. Connor McLaughlin, those sizes are pretty normal. Ben Kirk, thanks a lot again for stopping in and making it live this time. Robert,
you know what I want to do, Mike? I want to thank everybody for tuning in week after week.
Absolutely.
I don't know how long we've been doing this, but it's been like
been a long time,
20 years or so.
Been a long time. And I hope you learned something tonight. You know, we hope you learned something all the time. And like I said, George and I are always learning every day too. I say this all the time. We learn constantly every time we go fishing, and we're fortunate enough to fish with some really top line people, you know, and that's how we learn. We learn by ourselves out in the water, just picking up things. And then we do these shows and we pass it all on. You know, that punching thing, you know, I don't think you guys are sucking that in, but that guy that showed me that about punching those mats, those true mats, those dirty mats, when he showed me that, I was like, oh my God,
it's a nugget.
I won $5,000 that weekend. George turned around and won $8,800 the very next week. Because I
told the IRS,
and I told him that, you know, I showed him, I said, George, this is what you got to do. And blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh my God, you know, and he went and won $8,800, came in second place in a big giant tournament down there. So that's learning, that's listening, that's paying attention. That's not being prideful and saying, I don't know, these guys don't know what he's talking about. Well, you know, I hope I fish against you. Anyway.
All right. Well, listen, if you could go to our channels, our pages, our social medias, like, share, whatever else you got to do. I don't know all these things.
Speaking about social media real quick, everybody, you're going to want to hear this, because we're going to be putting a post on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. It's going to be a post about Greg DePalma talking about his favorite 3 baits with forward view. And if you share that, like it, comment, you will be put into a giveaway. So you
What are you giving away?
Well, we're going to be giving some lures
some
away.
lures and stuff away. All right.
Are you going to pick them out?
Yep, they're already
Oh, my
picked out.
God.
Good.
Did you pick them out?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Good.
So pay attention
Yeah.
because not only could you win some giveaways, but it's very good information about what baits.
Absolutely.
You might be surprised too what he picks out for his favorite 3 baits for forward view.
There you go.
Nothing surprises me about GDP.
That's right.
Well,
He's outside the box.
Well, until next time, everybody, we appreciate everybody stopping by Tackle Shop Live. And as always, we'll see you next time, and good fishing.